for this one, I am going to be handing you guys over to Brazil and Nike, who are going to break down this run for you. So I will end up being quiet, and you can hear these two very, very toxic individuals as we go into this match.
One thing that jumps out at me kind of right at the start is it doesn't appear that Quantify is using a Necromancer, unless, because I can barely see with the resolution of Fennec's Potato Stream, but it's pretty obvious that Harmonise is using a Necromancer. Necromancer is really good for controlling the Slublings in a low man, so it's a bit more of a YOLO comp than for Quantify, and a bit safer comp for Harmonise.
Yes, the Necromancer is absolutely wonderful on this fight because of one skill called Epidemic. Epidemic is able to just absolutely annihilate the Slublings that spawn, which can be very problematic with corrupting boons, shooting projectiles, applying slow, all kinds of nasty things. But there is a downside to Epidemic. If you use it at the wrong time, whenever a teammate has transformed into a Slubling, you can very easily kill your teammate too. And that can absolutely wreck the run, because that is going to limit your ability to move around the arena, because the poison floor will be out of control. So that could just be a mess. But it does appear that both teams have started off.
Wow, so Harmonise isn't using a Necro. Necro is dying. Yes. They're going for a 7-man. Interesting.
Wow.
That means they're looking to have a 10-man Matthias. That could be an advantage if they can keep the kill time here reasonably close.
Not wasting any time at all, just jumping straight into the mushroom and flying into the middle of the room to eat away at the floor to give their teammates space to move about. A double eat coming out from Particlar. I love seeing that. And Slothasor is in the middle of the room. Looks like they're just going to be burning down the Elementalist. Sorry, the Slublings with cleave damage with the Elementalist.
You can already see the DPS advantage Quantify has with the extra player. They've probably got about 5 to 10% more damage off of the Sloth's health bar so far.
And we should be seeing some CCs come out soon. There goes a CC for Harmonise. And every 20% this boss is going to get a break bar. He will fall asleep, and you will need to break him in order to continue on with the fight, because he does not take any damage. And I would imagine that some of the Tempests probably have Gale Song traded. I think that would make a lot of sense, so they can just auto-break the stuns. QT does have the floor timed extremely well, moving back just as the mushroom spawns, so that's very, very useful for them to be able to do that. Just move around the arena so coordinatedly.
Yeah, in addition to Gale Song, I would guess that the Druids are also using Protect Me just to be extra safe.
Just for the extra stun break?
Yep, group stun break.
When Slothasor does come out of his break bar phase, he does suck in air, and then he roars and fears all of the squad. And that fear can be very, very detrimental, because it is extremely long in duration, and you do see the green all over the floor. If players get feared into that poison, they can die very quickly, and they can also be on literally the other side of the room, out of being able to be saved, because they're so far away from the rest of the squad. Now, you do have advantages to having a Necromancer there because of Transfusion. Transfusion can move down players back on top of the Necromancer for an easy res. But again, we don't see any Necromancers. QT, it looks like they are going to be losing a member in their third subgroup.
Yep, it looks like their Mesmer is down. Harmonise taking a little bit of heavy pressure, but despite the fact that Harmonise is down a person, their damage on the boss is basically neck and neck with Quantify at this point.
Slothasor should be coming into his second to last break bar very soon. It is a little bit difficult to see the percentage, but yes, there it goes. They're going to have to deal with that break bar, and then there will be one final break bar at 10% HP. They are down a Mesmer, it would seem, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be able to just burn this really quickly. We do see the Icebow DPS exploit. Oh my goodness, the burning retreat back into that mushroom. Running up and just clearing the floor in front of the group. Brilliant, brilliant strategies there. And Slothasor now going into his final break bar phase for QT. Second to last break bar phase for Harmonise. Very, very close still. But I would anticipate QT, if they can actually break this bar, it looks like they're going to manage to break the bar right now. And Slothasor should die very quickly.
Yeah, with the Mesmer being dead, it does make you wonder how much they were relying on MOA for CC, for the group. And without that MOA, it might make it a bit more challenging. But Quantify is under a lot of pressure right now with the Evolved Slublings. And that is going to be another downed.
Oh my
defeated
goodness.
for Quantify, and then 2 more down. The boss is very low. This is 3 down. This could be bad.
Oh, no.
This could be a wipe for Quantify. The boss is very low. Can they finish it?
It looks like he's at 1% HP, if I'm seeing correctly. There he goes.
They should be able to finish it, yeah. Wow, that was very close.
Doing the GG strategy to move up to the end of the cave. It looks like they're going to be skipping out on the cave stash for their treasure chest, just moving straight into the Bandit trio.
No one stopping to watch the Vista. They must not need any XP. Harmonise really needs to finish the boss and get moving.
They're very close. Very close. It looks like Harmonise is going to down Slothasor. The GG strat coming out for them as well. Moving straight up that bouncing mushroom into the Bandit trio. QT already started on the trio. They already have their splits going down at the bottom. Clearing out the sappers. Moving up to take out snipers on the top there.
Yeah, this fight's relatively time-gated, so there's no real way to gain a huge advantage in time since the bosses spawn at set times. And it all come down to how efficiently they can kill Narella at the end, because that's the only way to speed it up, really.
Narella is most definitely the most dangerous boss of this entire encounter because she spawns fire tornadoes. If they do catch a player, that is very likely to be a death. Just tossing the player about, killing everyone, and it does require a mechanic for oil to be thrown onto the boss so you can light the boss on fire using her own gasoline mixture.
With Quantify taking 7 players here, that means they're going to, and 8 players at the first, meaning they're going to have a 9-player Matthias. And we're looking at most likely 10-player Matthias for Harmonise. They have to hope, I would figure, just on top of my head, that an extra player is probably worth about 30 seconds at Matthias. So they have to weigh that with how quickly they can get this done and get to Matthias.
It does depend on who exactly that extra player is. If they are running Sentinel's gear on their Elementalist, perhaps not. A classic meme from Tuesday raids and Salt. But I would anticipate
Who would do that?
I would anticipate that these guilds are running fully min-max DPS builds, probably even with their +5 stat infusions to boot. And it looks like that QT is going to have Berg down already. Working on Berg, throwing beads at him. He does have the bee effect on his bar for easy breaks. I'm curious to see if QT will be using the beehives to break the saboteurs, though. Maybe not so common a strategy. Not very well known.
See, the trouble with this boss is that we're going to end up seeing a lot of these teams just AFKing, doing nothing, while they wait for the next boss to spawn.
Exactly.
Because with the high damage output of both of these teams, it kind of, it takes a while to get anywhere.
The one advantage of killing the bosses faster in this is that it gives you more time to clear the ads. And especially before Narella, you can get in a situation where you have 10 ads up, and the extra damage from the ads does start to add up when Narella's pretty considerable damage is added to the mix. And something that would be survivable with no ads becomes much more challenging.
Just another example of where Necromancer does actually just make the fight a whole lot easier. Because Necromancer can just shoot epidemics out onto the mobs and deal with them very easily. But we don't see any of those, unless I can't quite tell. It looks like Harmonise may have one, perhaps? One Necromancer?
Yes, Harmonise definitely has one.
Do you think these teams will be able to effectively pull the flamethrowers away? Because I believe there's quite an effective strategy where you can actually cause it to launch it up to the bridge, where it's totally useless and flies around doing nothing. Do you think that's something we're going to be seeing here?
I would anticipate that to happen. It is very likely that both of these teams are aware of all of the tiniest strategies and mechanics, even some that have been, in fact, banned from the tournament due to just being totally exploity in nature. It does look like, however, that Harmonise left some bandits alive down by the river, and so Particlar is having to deal with those as he kills the bandits on the mortar. It looks like he's just taking the time to clear them out so he won't have to deal with them again. It does appear that there are still 4 out there with range just shooting at him, just essentially free casting onto him. But he's back up into the camp. He's going to be releasing the dogs to go down and fight Zane. This next boss, he does abuse animals, and so you can release wargs from their cages and they will come out and rip the boss's face off. And you also do see his deadly pistol attack. He has to be positioned so that he cannot face the cage with the prisoners. If he shoots onto that cage, if he shoots the prisoners, they take heavy damage and it can cause the event to fail almost immediately.
And Zane is down for Quantify. They're going to try to clear ads, especially the snipers, as much as possible, so that they can focus Narella and not have to worry about pressure from the ads.
And Harmonise does nearly have Zane down now. He is very, very low. The dogs are starting to run away. Saboteurs incoming. And Saboteurs and Mortars incoming for Quantify now. It looks like they will be sending players away to deal with the Mortars, which is probably very wise, instead of just trying to explode Narella immediately. That may not be the wisest strategy. Although it does appear that the cage and the prisoners are at a decent amount of health for both teams. So that is going to be very good for these teams moving forward. No real pressure at all, as Narella is going to spawn for Quantify now. So we'll see those oil kegs coming out now. It looks like they are attempting to bait out the fire tornadoes to the back of the room. One of them is misbehaving, though. It is flying into the group. We see Finnick going up the stairs, going to try to bait tornadoes up there now, it seems. Throwing another oil keg, baiting some flak up onto the cliff.
Yeah, they have very good damage on Narella.
Harmonise is just now getting to Narella. Narella nearly dead for Quantify, though. It looks like they're going to go ahead and complete the event.
That melted. We're probably going to see a portal play in order to get this next pre-Matthias event done as quickly as possible. And then we'll see whether the extra person for Harmonise is enough to close the gap. That is assuming they don't wipe to Narella, because it does look like there's a lot of flak and a lot of fire tornadoes on the boss, which is going to lower their DPS quite a bit, having to avoid all that.
And they do have Saboteurs and Mortars incoming as well now, so they're going to need to finish off Narella quickly. If those Mortars and the Saboteur get off their attacks, that could be a wipe, but it looks like they're going to go ahead and finish the boss. We see the GG coming out to get the checkpoints even faster. And it looks like we do have some funny strategies coming out for Quantify, jumping around the side of the castle instead of running up through the middle of it. It looks like we may have a split coming off here.
Well, the good news, too, is they'll have the checkpoint right by Matthias, so they will be able to GG quickly once the others clear the other part of the camp.
Harmonise just now getting to the ruins. Quantify looks to be making very, very good progress. And we should be seeing Matthias here very shortly. Now, Matthias is a very funny boss because his aggro mechanics are consistent, but they aren't necessarily the most predictable in the world because he simply aggroes to the farthest player away and he will chase after them. So you really have to manage where your party is stacking, where everyone is standing together, And Matthias will take a friendly player, turn them hostile, and attempt to sacrifice them. He will give them a break bar, and you have to break them out without killing them. It is a very clever mechanic. It can be very devastating if the wrong player gets sacrificed at the wrong time. If a Mesmer gets sacrificed when they need to reflect Matthias's bubble, that can be very horrifying.
Yeah, both teams look to be using a Condi Mesmer in their comp, and that's both the highest DPS class here and also the squishiest class here, as there's very few defenses. If the Condi Mesmer gets multiple mechanics in a row, it'll overload the 1 or 2 blocks that they have on their bar. And since you do rely on that Condi Mesmer for the group's feedback, it can cause a wipe if the Condi Mesmer goes down at the wrong time.
Yes, having Reflex is just absolutely critical here because it prevents the boss from taking any damage if you do not have those Reflects. And reflecting the wrong attack will buff the boss's damage, because he does do a vault attack where he jumps up into the air and shoots out little bloodstone shards from the floor. If those get reflected back onto the boss, he gets a stacking damage buff, and he can add up lots of damage modification. So timing those reflects and using reflects at the correct moments is very, very crucial.
Well, Quantify got spotted about 25% HP on Matthias due to the disadvantage that Harmonise had earlier, but Harmonise with 10 people, we'll see if they can close the gap down. They're going to really need to get a lot of DPS out of that 10th player in order to capitalize on it.
Even though they are a bit behind, Harmonise does have excellent damage still coming out of the boss here. You've got very, very good damage onto Matthias. However, Matthias at nearly 50% HP already for Quantify. That is probably what Quantify is best known for, is just their ability just to do damage, just damage while doing the mechanics. And they are definitely showing off that strength here, as Matthias is nearly going to get down to his Abomination phase here. It's just extremely quick. They are just blowing through the fight. Harmonise does still have excellent damage as well, but I don't know they're going to be able to catch up unless Quantify manages to wipe here.
I was really hoping to see a food swap during the rain phase to get rid of the seaweed salad and go with sweet and spicy butternut squash soup, since you want to be stationary in that phase to avoid getting knocked down. But no one wants to min-max that hard. A shame, really.
I think Quantify likely doesn't need it at this point. Harmonise does have Matthias down to nearly 50%, but Quantify is just smashing the boss.
Yeah, this last phase, things can go south really quickly. It just takes one player getting 2 mechanics back to back to cause a significant problem.
And we do have Matthias. He is pretty well controlled for the most part here. They are doing a very good job of stacking up. If they get mechanics, they run out and deal with the mechanics very quickly. As you can see now, we do have one of those bombs dropping at the edge of the room. But good timing as Matthias is doing his reflect attack. We do have... Oh, we nearly have a death for Quantify, though. It looks like they're going to be able to get that res off, though. Matthias nearly at 40%, though, for Harmonise.
Versus 22% for Quantify. The race is on. Quantify really needs to have a very, very... Harmonise needs to have a very, very strong final phase here. And they have to hope for a mistake from Quantify at this point. A big mistake.
Like disobedience, huh? That's a mistake. But it looks like Quantify, they are in a very, very good position to win.
Yeah, they
this.
don't have any downs, and they're not really... Well, I take that back. They don't have any defeateds, and they aren't really getting overloaded by any of the mechanics.
He does do the reflect at very low percent HP, but I don't think that's going to matter. They get the feedback off, and they just need a few more seconds to finish off the last of his HP. Matthias still though low for Harmonise, but I think that's probably going to be the game.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my internet is really lagging, so still 6% left here. Yeah, I know. It must be like 20 seconds of delay. What a disaster! My trash internet connection, guys. But I mean, it has already happened, and I'll just say it just for there we go. QT wins. GG. Oh, I forgot to stop the timer. There we go. I did it. And that will be a very fast clear, actually.
And hats off to Harmonise. They competed very well. Their clear was nothing to be ashamed of whatsoever. And I think their strategy was fairly sound. They didn't lose that much time at Sloth. I think they seem to have lost the most time in that Narella phase. A little bit at Sloth and then a little bit at Narella. Their Narella was a little sloppier than Quantify's.
Yeah. And
that was the difference.
We can see they were about 45 seconds behind, so really not a great deal in it there.
And we do just want to point out really quickly that save strategies, in the case where things go wrong for both teams, save strategies do make a lot of sense. But when you're playing with teams of this caliber, where essentially the highest and most complex strategy to execute is still a safe strategy for the team, then it just takes absolute just madman strat. You just have to go in and just wreck the bosses. QT definitely demonstrated that. Harmonise did as well. Harmonise just barely behind, but excellent execution from both teams.